All right. So our next speaker needs no introduction, so just come on up. Dave Adams, everybody. All right, here you go.
Well, good morning. Wow, what a great morning it's been, and I hope that I can keep it going. So, I wrote a book. As presumptuous as that sounds, it's tough. It still feels presumptuous, but I wrote a book that I'm going to talk to you about today. It's called Momentum to Win. But before I do, I have 6 of my 9 children here today, along with my wife, Evelyn, along with their significant others. And you might wonder, why did I do it? Because I love them? Yes. My children. Why are my children here? Because I love them. Because I thought it was going to be sunny in Traverse City? Yes. Because I'm going to receive an award? Yes. But the real reason is I'm going to retire in 3 weeks, and I thought if I don't get busy with this bring your child to work thing, it's going to be too late. But it's great to be here. I'm going to speak briefly on the front end, and then I'm going to have a conversation with Patty up here. Yeah, that cover of my book, by the way, my son Zachary, I was going to call this book What I've Learned So Far. And he said, no, Dad, you got to come up with something catchier than that. He said, when I was younger, you talked to me about a concept, and I'd forgotten about this. Somehow it broke through the clutter. He said, momentum. He said, you know, you need, no matter what you do in life, you need to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep moving forward. Take a few steps back, but just keep moving forward. Momentum. And so I titled it Momentum to Win. He also designed the book cover. Pretty cool, huh? So that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, I'm going to be talking fast. Uncharacteristically, I don't have 100 PowerPoint slides. I only have 10. But see that email address, dave.adams@cusg.com? It's on the first slide and the last slide. If you want a copy of my book, it is on Amazon, ebook and paperback. But I'll email you a free, obviously, PDF of my book. Or if you choose to buy the book, I plan to give presentations on this leadership topic to employee groups in the industry and maybe outside the industry. And all of the proceeds will go to the Fuel Young Professionals Group in Michigan. And why? I recently had a heart procedure that was successful, but the day before I had this ablation procedure to address an AFib problem. The young professionals invited me to speak to them, and I went on with the show and I did this, and I'm so inspired by these young people who are our future. And a couple of their leaders, Josh and Kyle, gave me feedback on my book. And you know, I want to focus on young professionals, but the concepts I'm trying to share are relevant to everybody. And momentum is relevant at all stages of life. For me, as I'm approaching retirement, as we age, we deal with health issues and all kinds of challenges. The concept of momentum applies all the way along the journey. So there are 10 chapters. I'm going to cover some slides. The intro to my book, I hope it won't surprise you and shock you too much that it's about credit unions, the marvel of credit unions. My whole adult life has been focused on being a part of all of you and what this industry stands for. The marvel, and each of these chapters has a catchy little song verse that because I love music. Think of the James Taylor song, I needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were. That's credit unions, right? So when I think of credit unions, it's whether it's Gary Peters here, who is our senior senator who is in office because we supported every election he ever had in Michigan. We were his first endorsement when he ran for an open Senate seat, and he's there. He understands credit unions, all that you have done with supporting the domestic auto industry and everything else, helping your communities, your members. So whether it's this image or whether it's the image of how you're helping members one at a time, the momentum concept applies to credit unions because you're helping your members with momentum, and the credit union industry itself is evolving day by day, year by year with the powerful force of momentum. I also want to really quickly comment the fun run today. Bridget, thank you again. I went out there with a couple of my kids and was out there with many of you. Since my heart procedure, which was again successful, I haven't run more than a mile. I run-walk to exercise. Today I made it 3 continuous miles running. Why? Because when you have the energy of a team, it motivates you. And so that's momentum, one foot in front of the other. Don't let the psychology of defeat and stagnation affect you. First chapter, learn survival skills. Who's that cute little boy? That's me. Do I look familiar? I got a little bit more hair. One of the few family photos I have, 3 years old there. Up in the top right. So one of the things about learn survival skills, you don't know what's going to come at you in life. When I was 3 years old, my father was tragically killed in a small plane crash off the coast of Washington State. That's the newspaper clip. He's the tall, handsome one, second from the left. And the picture at the bottom, my wife Evelyn and I traveled to the very resort that he stayed at, Rosario Resort on Orcas Island, the night before that plane took off and flipped upside down and killed him, leaving his 4 young boys and his wife. Why do I tell that story? It's a metaphor, it's an image for lesson number 1 when I think about my life, career, and personal, is you can't plan it. You don't know what's going to come at you. Another quick story, my daughter Aubrey is one of my heroes. She didn't know I was going to say this. Why? Like so many of you in this audience and so many others you know, after 17 years of marriage, her marriage was abruptly ended. Circumstances outside her control. 3 young boys, my grandchildren, and she had to pull her boots up figuratively and figure out, do I put one foot in front of the other or not? She went back to school, got her teaching degree, and I could not have been prouder the day I went to her classroom to see Mrs. Taylor on that door, 200 8th grade math students. Aubrey, she knows momentum. She's remarried a wonderful man, Matt, who's here. And that's just another example, one of my heroes. My kids are my heroes, and so many in this room are my heroes. Momentum is about survival. It's about so much more. I'm not going to cover it all today, but I think that's lesson number 1. You can't plan for everything. Be ready and be a survivor. Use momentum to do that. Second thing is passion. We know passion in the credit industry. Well, that picture there you see is a Mormon missionary. I was raised in the LDS church, and my first passion was my religion, my faith. Many of you have a faith that you're passionate about. And I went out for 2 years in France and Switzerland, and I learned to communicate. I learned to share my passion. While I'm not a practicing member of any religion today, and this isn't about religion, what that gave me is a glimpse of what it means to believe in something. That verse you see there is from a song that still means a lot to me. I take a paper in my hand and with a pencil sketch a man, the person I'd really, really like to be. I can't tell you how many times at that point in my life and later I've resketched that image, who I want to be. I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. I want to be a credit union person. I want to be a champion of good causes. And so lesson number 2, and there's a lot of stories in my book that I tell, find that passion and commit yourself to it. And as Confucius said, if you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. You all know what that feels like. Unfortunately, your career goes by really quickly because you're having so much fun. Number 3, your mentors. I've talked about this on the stage before. I won't go into a lot of detail. But my mentors, starting with my mother, my children, my past bosses, my co-mentors, the people I've worked with who have gone on to successful careers of their own. I tell you, you got to remember them, you got to reach out to them, you got to thank them, and you got to strive to be one at any stage of your career. Help others, lift each other up. Lesson number 4, become more relevant. Back in the early 80s, that's me playing the guitar at a credit union event way back then. I haven't done that in a long time. So this is about sharing talents, but it's about finding your talents. In the early 80s in Utah, the PC, the IBM PC just arrived, and nobody knew in our office what to do with the PC and the XT with the 10 megabyte hard drive. Fortunately, one of my mentors let me play with these little computers, and I became the computer guru, running cables through the ceiling, networking printers, sharing software, everything that the PC revolution brought. Well, what about today? It's AI, it's other technologies, it's innovations in lending and operations and marketing and accounting. And we need to be the ones, whether young or old, to seize those talents, develop them, share them, and make yourself relevant. Number 5, In Utah, early on, they were trailblazers because they were the first to have open fields of membership. And the credit union industry in Utah is now the banking industry. 80% of the population is a credit union member. This picture is me on one side. Harris Simmons, at the time, was the chairman and CEO of Utah's biggest bank, Zions Bank. And he later became the chair of the American Bankers Association. He hated credit unions. He probably still does. He doesn't like how you take business away from the big banks. And we're going at it with each other. I learned back then, whether I was ready or not, to go at it with passion, defending credit unions, and having the courage to fight off the bullies who want the whole pie for themselves as a for-profit sector. They don't like it when the pesky not-for-profit credit unions are serving people better, helping people who aren't being helped by banks. And so we continue to fight those battles. Number 6, take a leap of faith. I've had so many failures that I've learned from over my career. LifeSteps Wallet wasn't a failure, it was a cutting-edge innovation. We tried to do something with technology that didn't quite work out, and that's okay. We've tried to do things with technology nationally, bringing state leagues and CUNA together. It didn't completely work out, but it did yield some compliance companies that our Glory Ledoux heads up that thousands of credit unions across the country benefit from and use today. So you can't always have all of the information. Take that leap of faith, try things. Board members, have your CEOs' backs. CEOs, have your employees' backs when they try things and they fail. Because you can't succeed without having some missteps and some failures along the way. 7, learn the power of teams and collaboration. Oh my gosh, I could write 10 books on this. That one picture you see is about the time I arrived in Michigan, the Credit Union Campaign for Consumer Choice, HR 1151. It took an act of Congress. We as an industry nationwide, we had to rally on the Mall in Washington, D.C. It took Congress overturning a Supreme Court decision to allow credit unions to just continue serving their members. We did that back in 1998. I remember Newt Gingrich. Some of you remember the sitting Speaker of the House back then. Speakers of the House are not supposed to co-sponsor legislation. I remember the GAC, because of the grassroots lobbying in his home state of Georgia, he stood on the stage and he said, "Today I'm announcing that I'm co-sponsoring HR 1151. And the place went crazy. We had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and Bill Clinton, a Democratic president. It took a tremendous grassroots effort to break through the dysfunctionality of Congress to do what's right for the American people and to fix that. That's the power of teams and collaboration. 8, be confident and prove your detractors wrong. When we updated the State Act in 2004 here, thank you Patrick Lapine and Kieran Marion and all of our advocacy team and all of you who were part of that, this liberalized field of membership to make it easier for state chartered credit unions to seamlessly, affordably, inexpensively rather, broaden their fields of membership. Why is that important? Is it important for shareholders? No. It's important for the consumers across the state who need access to a credit union for affordable finance, right? And that legislation was passed, allowed for broader investment authorities, for CUSO investment and so on. It took overcoming the objections of the Michigan Bankers Association. We even had a competing trade association at the time that was trying to block us in our efforts. And so that was one life lesson that I had that I remember that is so significant. Another one is the charter conversion movement. We had credit unions attempting to convert from credit unions to banks. And it ran through Michigan, and we were instrumental in helping to have those regulations rewritten over many detractors' objections so that credit unions can continue to shine like they do. Number 9, take risk. You have to take risk, and with a supporting cast, big things can happen. The Invest in America campaign, where credit unions helped our domestic auto companies, General Motors and Chrysler in particular, with affordable financing during the Great Recession when the credit markets had frozen up. You know the story. But we couldn't have done that without the supporting cast of credit unions, thousands of credit unions across the country, including the hub here in Michigan. I told this story, and I tell it again and again, when Mark Leneve, the director of marketing and sales for GM, called me and said, "Thank you, credit unions, for believing in us when no one else would." Amazing. Dan Hesse, the CEO of Sprint, the Sprint program put close to $100 million back into the industry for credit unions and associations, right? And what we're able to accomplish together by taking some risk and having a team, it's just amazing. Finally, number 10, I've done some things in my career where I've upset some people. When we updated the membership rules in the industry to allow for optionality or the ability to belong to CUNA and your state league independently, it was a very divisive thing. And in Michigan, our league board in Michigan took the position that our credit unions are saying they want that, so we should stop being parochial and protecting our own interests as associations and do what people are asking for. Well, one of my colleagues called me at the time, and he said, "Dave, what a shame, because your legacy, what you did, what a shame that you may have damaged or negatively affected this industry that we've all worked so hard to protect." He was on the wrong side of this issue. We were on the right side, doing the right thing, principle-based. And I said, "I'm sorry, but I fear that you worry more about my legacy than I do. Don't worry about your legacy. That'll take care of itself. Worry about making principle-based decisions and doing the right thing." So finally, the epilogue. I don't know why you say goodbye. I say hello, because I'm not ending anything. My momentum is taking me to where I'm going next. I hope to write some books. I hope to do some speaking. I hope to be impactful and helpful in some form or fashion. That's my remote work office on Little Crooked Lake. Picture of me that my brother took. Finally, one of my church leaders long ago said, "No other success can compensate for failure in the home." And we all make sacrifices. And sometimes our family suffers from that. And I'm looking forward to committing to spend more time with my kids and my grandkids and my family and to fix that imbalance a bit. And so that's what I'm looking to do, looking to stay healthy, looking to make an impact. And finally, Emerson is one of my favorite poets, and I'm not going to quote the whole thing, but something that I love that he said represents how I look at success. And he said, whether a healthy child, a garden patch, or something of some redeeming social value, to know that even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, that is to have succeeded. And so you do that every day. I love being a part of it, and thank you very much. I appreciate you listening. Now, someone who needs no introduction. Patty Corkery, we're going to have a conversation.
All right, we sure are. All right, I'm ready. Got some questions for you, Dave. Do you want to sit on that side?
Yeah, I'm good.
Is that good? Okay. So thanks, Dave. And what a great announcement. Let's hear it for Dave giving the proceeds to the book to the young professionals. That's awesome.
Yeah, excited.
I didn't know you were going to do that, so that's amazing, Dave. So I had the privilege of reading Dave's book, and it was funny. I got through it, and then 2 days later, you sent me a revised copy. And I was like, oh, man. So I think I've got some of the packed with so many great stories. And I think especially it was poignant for me to read it coming into this event as we're celebrating Dave, just as a reminder of all the amazing things that he's done, but not just in the career world, but things I didn't know about you personally, and it was really fascinating to read about that. And one of the things that struck me that you talked about, and that was kind of similar to my beginnings, is you started working at 12, right, with various things, paper routes or whatever it might be. Yeah, babysitting, exactly. And it resonated with me because I know there's a lot of folks in here raising kids or have grandkids in their lives, and there's kind of a trend away from, working when you're younger. And I was curious, as somebody that kind of has been working for that long, how do you think starting, earning money and having that responsibility at such a young age made an impact on your career?
It made a big impact, and you know, many of us have come from homes of modest means, and that was the case with me. My mother raising 4 boys, I was the youngest, and there were times when we were on welfare, government or church. I never felt poor, but I don't think it's a generational thing as much as it is an income thing. I think when we have successful households financially, sometimes we do too much for our children, and as opposed to teaching a work ethic. And so I appreciate the fact that as a younger boy, I was weeding corn patches, and later on, you know, working in warehouses and doing different things and learning to work early, whether it's babysitting or anything else. So I think it's more a function of, regardless of the income demographic, we all need to take seriously that as we're trying to teach our children and grandchildren, that we're teaching the importance of work.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially depending on what you're doing, but some of that, just the customer service component of it, you know, I found so helpful as I was younger, and you're navigating all of that, so that's awesome. I know you spent quite a bit of time in your book talking about young professionals, and I know I heard from some of our YPs, you spoke in front of their group and not that long ago, and so many of them commented on how much they appreciated all of the things you had to say, and I know you kind of walked through some of the things that you did with us this morning, but you talk a bit about young professionals having kind of hidden talents, and that sometimes maybe their current role at their, whatever they're doing, at their credit union, at their QSO, might not actually let their hidden talent shine. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
That's partly their fault, partly our fault when we're in that position, and it's also partly the fault of their culture, their bosses, and so on. But the reality is that you have to seize the opportunity to find those talents and to share them. You know, I think that young people, they're our future, obviously, but you know, there needs to be a culture and an environment where people feel like they can step out of their comfort zone and try new things. Like I mentioned, the PC experience that I had, and have that be part of the culture, because and people need to be unafraid, right? To say, look, I was thinking, I have an interest in marketing. I know I'm a lending person, but you know, I feel like I have something to offer. And so I think it's part having the courage and the willingness on the part of the young professional, the employee, and part a cultural thing where we encourage that of our employees.
Yeah, for sure. And I know one of the things I've talked about when I'm speaking about taking over, and that's the team that you've put in place on both the league side and CUSG. So as you were kind of throughout your career interviewing people, right, to join your team, to be part of either the league or CUSG, what are some of the things that you took into consideration or that were important to you to have in somebody that was coming to join? Because you've put together such an amazing group. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the group, the CUSG team and the MCL team that preceded me.
Well, for all of us who are CEOs, we would agree, thank goodness it's not us solely solely who are making those decisions. We have amazing leaders and HR people and others who are bringing the talent in, and we're doing the final interview or the rubber stamp. But for me, you know, it's not as much about skills, because skills can be learned. Yeah. It's about attitude and character. We've had, I'm very proud of the fact that we've had numerous employees who have hired back on. Yeah. A kid, Kieran Marion, that he's on his 3rd tour of duty.
Right.
And you know, that's a real compliment. But there was a time when we had an employee who left us and actually made some disparaging remarks about me and about the company. And when I interviewed her, because staff wanted to hire her back, I confronted her on that very directly. And I said, have your feelings changed? And of course they had. But honestly, my concern was mostly about, in that case, are you going to be a fit for this culture? Are the things that you didn't like or that you were uncomfortable with, are those things real, or is that just something you said? And of course, you know, she had an epiphany to where, in a very real way, where our culture was something she wanted to be a part of.
Yeah.
And whether it's ours or whether it's any company, different cultures are not absolutely right for everybody. Like CUSG, we have a remote work culture. Some people don't like that, and we can't help that. If they don't like it, they have to go find a culture that they do like. So what I think I've always looked for and appreciated is people who have honesty and character and are a good fit for a culture, not so much about the skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things I've admired in you is observing you when people have left the organization. So you mentioned Kieran leaving or other folks that have left and come back. You're always so positive about, of course you're not happy that they're leaving because it means we have to fill a role, but you're encouraging of them growing in their career and developing, and you're always like, well, that's too bad, but I'm really happy for them, and you have such a good attitude about that, sending them on to something else.
Well, there isn't a bigger compliment for an organization than to have your employees be hired away to an exciting, successful career. And we have so many examples of that. It's really a compliment to the organization, and you always want what is best for the people, right? Whether it's with you or whether they're going somewhere else. But yeah, absolutely, I think that's really important.
So you mentioned in your book there were a few different examples, and as I read them, I'm like, wow, I keep forgetting about these big issues that you were involved in. And I'm sure a lot of you thought about that when Dave was talking through some of the things that he took on as a league president. You talked about, first off, intervening to try and prevent credit unions from converting to banks. I know that was a big thing and a very tough issue to navigate as a league president. Yeah. Lobbying to improve the Michigan Credit Union Act and the Credit Union Charter, initiatives like Invest in America. So as you kind of look back, Dave, what project do you think was the biggest challenge that you kind of faced, and how did you navigate that?
I think the biggest challenge by far was when we had the bank charter conversion movement rolling through Michigan. So these consultants who come in with not necessarily the best intentions, they provide a framework for credit unions to convert to a mutual savings bank and then a stock bank. And the insiders get enriched. They have opportunities for stock and stock awards and so on. And for the executives at the credit unions in Michigan and elsewhere, I think they had the best of intentions, right? But when consultants come in and make that case, in the case of two of our larger credit unions, it created a real challenge for the movement. Do we try to stop that? No, that wouldn't be the right thing because the law is the law.
Right.
But do we try to fix the regulations so that the members have adequate disclosure and know what's in it for them? That's what our focus was. And so what was difficult about that, and I thank our league board of directors who supported our policy, which was having the ability to convert is okay, but it's important that the public, that the members understand what's in it for them and understand the differences. And we haven't had a charter conversion in the US since we were instrumental in having the regulations rewritten to allow for adequate disclosures and a better process. Why? Because I don't believe there's a credit union in the world that if members are properly informed about what happens after you become a bank, your loan rates go up and your savings rates go down and your fees go up and service levels go down. That's what banks give you versus relative to credit union. You're not going to vote for that. Right? And so it was challenging because we had some in our industry who I think there was the enrichment aspect and there's some who wanted to have that option. Not very many. More than anything, our industry stood with the league and stood with me as the CEO. We took a stand, the rules were rewritten, and credit unions are credit unions. And by the way, those credit unions that remained credit unions in Michigan are thriving.
Yeah,
They're among
absolutely.
the most successful credit unions in the world.
Yeah, that was a sticky initiative, Dave. And you navigated that so well. I know a lot of people in the room remember that. Okay, so as we kind of wrap up, Dave, I know I wanted to get this right. You say in your book that if you live a principle-based life, the legacy will follow. So as you kind of reflect back on your amazing career, what do you think your legacy for us in Michigan will be?
I hope it's what you just said. It's that Dave was a principled guy. I made enemies along the way in Michigan, outside Michigan, by taking positions on things, whether it was the charter conversion issue or whether it was the dues choice issue. Yeah. It wasn't a popularity contest. It was trying to do the right thing. And I told this story of how one of my colleagues said, what a terrible legacy. Well, no, I don't care about my legacy. Mm-hmm. I do, but I don't. I want my legacy to be like you and other people I work with who make decisions for the right reasons and try to do the right thing. And then you let the chips fall where they may. and maybe you're remembered fondly and maybe you're not, but yeah, it's about principle-centered leadership.
Well, I have no doubt that you're going to be remembered fondly, so I don't think that's an issue in your situation, right? So I know that a lot of people in this room are going to stick on for our amazing awards gala, where we're recognizing a lot of amazing credit union people and credit unions, and I know that's going to be a special night for you and your family, Dave, as we celebrate you as well. But for the folks that aren't going to be there, I just want to say, you know, what an amazing legacy you've had so far. I'm thrilled to hear that your goal is to stay in the industry and to get out there and talk to credit unions and to boards and continue to write books and share some of the things that you've learned. But from all of us in the industry and in the room, just thank you so much for your amazing career, Dave. Especially, I know you've been in other states, but here Michigan became your home over 2 decades ago, and we're so glad that you made that decision to come here and work with our amazing credit unions, and they are better for it. So thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, Patty, thank you. Patty's used to me saying, I want to have the last word.
But before you do, I do.
She has the power.
I do want to say, I asked Dave, I said, hey Dave, my preference is to not share my questions with you in advance, and so you're not preparing. And he gave me the green light, so I could have asked him anything, and you did awesome. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. And so the last word,
yes.
The last word, even though I no longer have the power, the last word is that you ask about my legacy and the things that I want to be remembered for and to have accomplished. Patty would have told me to not say this, but I have to say it one more time because I'm on the stage with her. One of the things that I am most proud of is this lady, your leader, the person who is going to continue on with the legacy of the Michigan Credit Union movement that I inherited, and that woodpile that I've put a few logs on during my tenure. Patty is incredible in Michigan and around the country. She is a proven leader already, and I couldn't be happier to see the Michigan Credit Union League, the envy of credit unions around the country, be led by your CEO, Patty Corkery.
Thanks, Dave. So, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
All right. Awesome work.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome. All right.